Video's live. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the November 10th, 2021 meeting of the Cowichan Valley Regional District Board. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. The Local Government Act requires that regional districts elect a chair and a vice chair at the first meeting in November each year. As per a previous resolution of the board, the chair of the Regional District Board and the Regional Hospital District Board are held by the same director. The same applies to the position of vice chair. The first order of business will be the election of the chair. At the close of nominations, if more than one individual has been nominated, each candidate for the chair will be given the opportunity to address the board in favor of their candidacy. Names will be drawn to determine the order of speaking. If an election by voting is required, an anonymous WebEx poll will be used. A majority of votes of the members is required to elect the chair, which means that one of the candidates must receive at least 8 votes to be elected. If there are 3 or more candidates and no one receives at least 8 votes, the vote will be repeated and the candidate receiving the fewest votes will be removed from the election. This process will be repeated until a candidate is elected or until only 2 candidates remain and the vote is tied. Are there any questions from the board relating to the process? Director Marsh?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Legault, through you to you. Are we asking questions of candidates if there's more than one?
Yes, that will follow after the nominations.
Okay.
All right, seeing no further questions related to the process, I'll call a first time for nominations for the position of chair of the Cowichan Valley Regional District. Director McGonigal.
I would like to nominate Director Sebring, please.
Director Sebring, do you accept the nomination?
I do, thank you.
Director Wilson.
I would like to nominate Director Yanni Donato.
Director Yanni Donato, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Now, Director Nicholson. I can't hear you.
I switched. I'm on a new computer and it's not working the same way. I would like to nominate Sierra Acton.
Director Acton, do you accept the nomination?
Thank you, I do.
I'm going to call again for a second time for nominations for the office of chair. And I'm going to call a third and final time for nominations for the office of chair. Oh, I'm sorry, Director McGonigal.
I would also like to nominate Director Morrison, please.
Director Morrison, do you accept the nomination?
With great respect for my nominator and considering the burden of the office, I respectfully decline.
Calling a third and final time for nominations. Seeing none, I'm going to close the nominations. Having received 3 nominations, each candidate will be given an opportunity to address the board prior to the election. The candidates are Director Sebring, Yanni Donato, and Acton, and I'm just going to write those names on a slip of paper so that I can draw them for the order in which to speak. I have my very high-tech system here. And the first candidate to speak is Director Sebring.
Thank you, Madam Acting Chair. Good evening, everybody. I want to start tonight by acknowledging outgoing Chair Stone for his work on behalf of this board for the past 2 years. I had been very clear from the outset that I would not have accepted the nomination for this position if Aaron had decided to stand for re-election. His calm but firm hand and his articulate expression of various positions over the past 2 years, both in terms of issues we were facing and some of the governance challenges that have arisen, have honestly inspired me. And Aaron, I just want to thank you for your service, sir. I also wanted to thank Director McGonigal for the nomination. He and I have discussed this at some length, and I have to be honest, as recently as yesterday morning when I was talking with Tim about this, I was waffling about whether or not to even accept the nomination. You know, Director Morrison referenced the challenges that are before us, and they are not insignificant. It's not appropriate to get into the specifics of that in an open meeting, but we all know that this board is facing some challenges in terms of governance, cohesion, and unity. But Tim reminded me quite passionately yesterday that he believed I was uniquely qualified to lead this group through what could be a very difficult final year of governance. And to be clear, folks, it doesn't have to be a very difficult year. A lot of that depends on each and every one of us. That's not exclusively on the chair, whoever that's going to be at the end of this voting process. But I believe I bring a demonstrable skill set to this position. I'm not going to promise to solve all of our problems. Many of those problems reside, let's be honest, in some of the interpersonal dynamics that are at play. And I honestly believe the best way to address those is for each of us to do a better job of self-regulating. I'm often reminded of the Ali Mina session that we had some months ago, where he kept coming back to the mantra that the process is your friend. And those of you who know me well know that that's who I am, the process guy, the governance geek. I understand there's also a dynamic at play in this decision that pits electoral area directors against municipal directors. But I believe with all my heart that this is the wrong lens through which to view the choice that's before us tonight. Yes, there's been a tradition of alternating between EA and municipal directors for chair of this board. That was a long time ago. Tonight, I believe this is about picking the best candidate for the position, the one who's best qualified to lead this group in the final year of our electoral term. I'm not trying to sound arrogant, but I honestly believe I'm that guy. Yes, the chair needs to advocate for positions of the board, including specific concerns of specific electoral areas. When it comes time to do lobbying at UBCM, for example, I have considerable experience at that and successful experience in many files, and I'm more than happy to do that on behalf of the CBRD. And let's be honest, a lot of those lobbying efforts, while they're led by the politicians, they're driven by staff. We get the briefing notes from them. We are fully briefed when we walk in, and we do the job. The job of chair, to me, first and foremost, is to facilitate good governance, to be that process geek. You know, all of you have heard by now, I'm sure, of North Cowichan's recent win at the BC Court of Appeal on the motorsport circuit file. The specifics of that case involved a judicial review of the process that North Cowichan used in one of the votes on the track expansion. When I heard the VIMC was challenging that process, I have to say quite honestly that I took that somewhat personally. Somebody was challenging what I considered to be my greatest strength in governance, and that was to ensure that things got done right. I took it as a personal offense because I firmly believed that process-wise we had crossed all our T's, dotted all our I's. The lower court, I think out of a desire not to insert itself into a big controversy, just ordered us to do it over. But a 3-judge panel of the BC Court of Appeal reconsidered that, and that panel was unanimous in upholding the process, which I chaired. It was gratifying to see, and I don't want to sound arrogant, but I considered that ruling last week to be a personal victory and an express validation and legitimization of a process which I led. That's what I'm talking about when I say we need the best candidate, and the decision should not be based on, or it should be based rather, on governance decisions, not on which particular subset of voters sent individual directors to this table. part of those qualifications for me, I think I'm the only person at this table who's gone through the Local Government Leadership Academy certification program, the only one who's attained the highest level of accreditation that's offered there, the Certificate of Excellence, Level 3. I'm so enthusiastic about this stuff that I went through the certification process as soon as LGLA opened up the applications for that top level. I'd already done the other two. I was only one of only 4 local government elected officials to go for that certification in the first round of the offering. There was a glitch in the paperwork and I didn't get my certificate till the following year, but even to this day, I'm one of only 11 people in the entire province that has this certification. That's how passionate I am about good governance, and I'd like to offer that skill set to this board, if you'll have me as chair. It's no secret we've had our governance challenges at North Cowichan even for the past 3 years. As part of that, I've had to moderate my expectations in terms of my own personal political preferences. And I've done that quite gladly in the interest of providing good governance and stable leadership. Some of that same dynamic, I'm sure, will come into play here if I become chair, but that is what good governance is about. It's about all of us subsuming our personal agendas to the will of the majority, but making sure that that will of the majority is arrived at and expressed through a legitimate process of governance and deliberation. That means, for example, that we as a board stick to what we're here to do, set policy and governance direction, and that we don't get into the weeds of the day-to-day management of the organization. We have well-paid, highly qualified, and very motivated and dedicated staff who are tasked with doing that. And when we try to usurp their role by micromanaging some of these decisions where we really have no business interfering, it hurts morale. It has staff questioning their own competence and their worth within the organization. That ultimately leads to the kinds of challenges that we'll be talking about in our closed session later tonight. So my focus will be on governance, on doing it right, and just as importantly, on not doing things wrong. I acknowledge I'm in a bit of an uphill fight here. There's a sentiment that I've heard expressed by a number of EA directors about the need for one of their own to assume the chair. And I honestly wouldn't be offended if either Director Yanni-DiNardo or Director Acton were to win tonight. Particularly Director Yanni-DiNardo and I have worked together at various tables since we were both first elected in '08, and this board could do a lot worse than having her or Sierra as chair. But I simply want to give everybody an option here, an option of someone who's passionate about good governance and who has the skill set to steer this board past some of our current difficulties and into what we all want to be a productive final year of the term. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll select the next candidate to speak. Director Yanni-DiNardo.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. First of all, I would like to acknowledge that I am reading my speech today from the traditional territory of the Coast Salish peoples. I would like to thank all of you, including Aaron, who's taken on the charge, for all of your hard work and strength for continuing to do our work in this very difficult last 18 months of COVID. I think we should give each other all a pat on the back. Well, why pick me as the board chair? I have no letters behind my name, except my name is kind of the alphabet, and the only letters behind my name are MOM, and years of experience working with people running a nonprofit. Some of you have worked with me in my role running Cowichan Community Kitchens. I've been listening, watching, participating for many years now, and I feel I have the experience, the time, and the commitment to really serve in the capacity of board chair. I have leadership skills. I am a good listener. I have participated in the Airshed Roundtable, Kerry Park, chairing Cowichan Community Center, Cowichan Watershed Board, AVICC, Solid Waste Committee, Agriculture, Climate Adaptation, and chairing Electoral Area Services Committee, and many more. I have been in service to our community most of my life. I have the same dog, same house, same husband. That was for you, Sierra. No, that was just for bringing in fresh. We talked about bringing in freshness. So I'm just stating the facts. So no, seriously, I admit that my secret weapon is my husband of 46 years. And my family that have kept me grounded. I have been very blessed to have them, and they are my base and my solid support. We need to protect our intellectual capacity with shorter meetings, as Ellie Mina would say. We also need stability and our services supported and stick to our knitting. We have heard that many times lately, let's be kind, and we should even be kinder with ourselves. This is going to be a difficult year, but I truly believe we can pull together, quoting again from our friend Ellie Mina, suffering is optional. As a good leader brings everyone along with them, and we need to work together. I'm ending my speech with a poem that really struck me while I was doing my speech, actually. It's impossible, said pride. It's risky, said experience. It's pointless, said reason. Give it a try, whispered the heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Director Acton?
Thank you. Those were awesome. I have 2 words for you: radical collaboration. Thank you, Director Nicholson, for the nomination, and thank you to all of you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I'd like to take this opportunity as well to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people. How I see it, we have 2 choices this year. We can let things happen, or we can radically turn the ship. There's no one person who has all the skills to make this happen. I believe it's going to take a we effort. Can you picture an organization where we have the dream work environment for staff, our strategic plan is moving forward, and we leave a stable organization for the next board? I know it's a tall order, but I believe we can do this. We're all accomplished people. In my opinion, the only way this is going to happen is through collaboration. Collaboration with each other, collaboration with staff, and collaboration with community. And first and foremost, by putting our best foot forward. We can sit back, let the year ride out, or we can actually play full out, accomplish something that really matters for all our communities. We've been hit with the perfect storm. Everyone acts differently in a crisis. Some overachieve, some shut down, some get scared. We're all coming out of this now, and now is our time to look forward and listen to all perspectives and make a few key decisions. No one is perfect, no one person is to blame, and the people before today have given their all. Hats off to all of you, and especially Chair Stone. I've made some mistakes and I have a few regrets, but I'm willing to dust myself off, bring a few skills to the table, and I bring a fresh perspective, a can-do attitude, and a perspective of a family that has school-age kids. We aren't gonna all agree, and we're not gonna all agree all the time. And I don't know all the details to get us to that better future, but I am a visionary and an action taker and a caring person who connects with people. In closing, by voting for me, you're saying all our voices matter, we're going to put our best foot forward, and we're going to work together. So let's together radically turn this ship.
Thank you, Director Acton, and thank you, candidates. We're now going to move on to the candidate question period. The board procedures bylaw provides for a maximum of 30 minutes to ask questions of the candidates. Each director will be allowed to ask 1 question of one or all of the candidates. If after all directors have been heard and there is still time remaining, directors who have already spoken may ask a follow-up question. So I'm starting the timer. Does anyone have any questions? Director Wilson. Who is your question for, Director Wilson?
This would be to all the candidates, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
Okay.
There have been discussions on the workload that and hours that elected officials have to shoulder in carrying out their normal duties. Do you feel that you have the time and the commitment to fully apply yourself to the extra duties that the chair position will bring?
Okay, for the order of speaking, I'm going to draw names again, and I'll draw them 3 in the row for the order of responding to questions. So I have Director Acton first, then Director Sebring, then Director Yanni DiNardo.
Thank you, Director Wilson. Yeah, the workload is no doubt a large one. I have the support of my family. I've been in this role for 4.5 years now, been able to really maximize my time. And what's the expression? You want something done, you ask a busy person. So I feel like adding this is something that I can take on, and I have that support around me. And as in my speech, this is a we thing. There really is a lot of people who back up the chair, and so not all the work gets spread out or given to just one person. So thank you.
Director Sebring.
Thank you. In a word, Mike, yes, I do believe I have the time. You know, and that was a consideration when I decided to take a shot at this. I'm very religious about managing my calendar. My staff at North Cowichan is also religious about managing it, and I'm finding that there are, as a matter of course, there are certainly 2 days a week that I spend a lot less time on mayor stuff than you might think. And my intent would be to take those 2 days a week and fill those up here. I mean, you got to build a schedule and you need to be reasonable about it, but and I'll tell you what, if this position requires me to be here or to engage with staff fulsomely for more than 3 hours a day, 2 days a week, then we're doing something wrong. So, you know, then we need to look at some of those process pieces. But so the answer to your question is yes, I do have that time in my calendar. I've considered that, and it was certainly one of the factors that influenced my decision to run. So thank you.
Director Yanni DiNardo.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a big part of thinking about taking on this job, and I no longer facilitate Cowichan Community Kitchens. I no longer have that. It's just a small little part that I pay with one kitchen. So it's not very much time during a month, but it also breaks up I like being with my groups, and it's actually really good for me. And it's about balancing. So I need to balance everything in my lifestyle, and that is what I do. I do a lot of walk, I do Qigong, yoga. I balance in between the work and my priorities, and that's what I would continue to do. Thank you.
Next question, I believe I saw Director Martman's hand earlier.
Thank you. And it's for all candidates, so Al may, Director Sebring may have already answered it, but I'll let him decide if he has or not. What do you, if elected, what do you plan in your presence at the CVRD offices?
I'm going
To be your presence, yeah.
Sorry, this question was for all candidates, and I'm going to flip the order of answering this time. So I'll go to Director Yanni DiNardo first.
The presence, well, whenever I'm needed. I didn't expect this to be a full-time job in the office, but if it is, that's what I would commit to. But I really don't think that it is. I think once again, there's a balancing act and when you're needed. And also now with Zoom, I think that a lot of the hybrid models has really contributed to our carbon footprint, which balances out as well. So I look to whatever the needs, whatever it will take, and the time that it will take me and how many hours, I'm not sure. I didn't actually ask the former chair the hours that he committed to, but I understand there was a lot of work. So I didn't come into this with any naivety. Thank you.
Director Sebring.
I've sort of answered this, but let me expand on it, I guess, a little bit. COVID has really rearranged the way we do a lot of our thinking around this stuff. And I see it even within the North Cowichan context. I mean, I used to spend 3 days a week, probably 5 hours a day in my mayor's office. I don't do that anymore, obviously, because, you know, like today, in the North Cowichan context, I go in twice a week to sign whatever papers need to be signed, and one of those times is usually a 20-minute meeting with the CAO just to keep each other updated. Beyond that, everything else is done by phone, by text, by email, or by Zoom. And so if you're asking, Ben, how much time do I expect to spend here on Ingram, not a whole lot, because I don't think it's necessary. Yeah, there needs to be that connection to senior staff, and you got to come in and do the pro formas and signing the papers. But beyond that, a lot of this nowadays is being managed in different electronic ways, and that's just the reality of COVID. I don't want to be walking in here and making staff feel uncomfortable because, well, you know, there's an extra person. This is, tonight, I'm in chambers. This is the first time since March of 2020 that I've been in this room. That's just kind of how it is. And so, no, I don't see a big physical presence here, but that doesn't mean I won't be putting in the time and the hours that are necessary. It's just a different way of doing it, that's all.
Director Acton.
Thank you. Yeah, that is something that I gave a lot of thought to, actually. I am prepared to contribute about 3 days a week to the role. I would say I was preparing, actually, thinking about going back to the consulting world, so I have been able to create the director's role as more of a 2-day, like a 16-hour kind of role. So I feel that there's no, it's not going to be 3 days in the office, 9 to 5. It's a balancing act. As Director Yanni Donardo talked about, it's all the other things still happen. And as Director Sebring pointed out, we are some's by Zoom. We save a lot of time, no more driving for certain things. And it's just a matter of balance, and I have about 3 days in total to dedicate to the role.
Thank you. Are there any other candidates, or questions for the candidates, sorry? Director Staples.
Thank you. So first of all, thank all of you for standing up to run for this position. And I'd like to know, everyone talked about the importance of bringing people together. And I'd like to hear how you plan, or what are your plans for making the board more cohesive, for, helping us along. What would that look like to you? And that's for all candidates.
Thank you, Director Staples. I'm going to shake up the speaking order again. And we'll go with Acton, Sebring, and Yanni Donardo came out the same way.
Thank you, Director Staples. Well, thank you for the question on collaboration, really. And I truly believe it is a group effort, and we're going to have some serious conversations and get really clear together as a group on what our few goals are that we really want to focus on. I really believe that that's kind of key for accomplishing anything this year. We don't have a lot of time, but sometimes when you have a time pressure, you can actually get a lot done. And I think if we have the opportunity to, what I would really like to see is all of us have a casual conversation, as we did at the beginning of our term, And I felt like that was really productive, and we're all very clear on, we've all had an opportunity to voice what we want to see happen, and we've all we're going to have to come together, and we are going to have to compromise and focus on what's going to really matter to us. And I think we can make that happen. It's going to be some tough conversations, but like I said, if we all are willing to listen, and I feel like we are, like, it's just, sorry, I've lost my thought. This is late for me, I feel. It's really about us just talking and listening to each other and really feeling heard. And it's gonna have to be all of us together. So, thanks.
Thank you. Director Sebring.
Thank you. You know, some of you have heard me say this. I've said it in various contexts and places, even in campaigns. It really goes to how we view one another around this table, around this virtual table as we're gathered here. You know, I ask the question sometimes, and I've asked it of my council, how many of you got up this morning and said, this day or this week, I want to make the CVRD a lousier place to live? None of us approach this job with that motivation. We all may have different definitions of what a better place to live is, and we may have different paths on how we want to get there. But we have to give each other the benefit of the doubt and the respect that says everybody is coming to this table with the right motivation. And I hesitate to say this, but sometimes when I listen to the tone and the tenor of the debate, I wonder whether we do that. I wonder whether we give each other the due respect that each of us is due. And you know, and the other part of that is the governance principle that says once we've made a decision, we collectively have made the decision, and we don't sit there and snipe and bitch and whine and moan and complain about the decision by those 8 members of the board because I happen to be on the 7 side. We all stand by that decision, whether we voted for it or not. That's fundamental to governance, and I think we're losing that more and more in, not just here at the CBRD, but generally in local government. When I talk to some of the governance consultants I know, like Tracy Lawrenson and Jerry Berry and Ellie Mina and some of these other folks, George Cuff, they're seeing that kind of collegiality is starting to wane, and I fear that that's happening at this table as well sometimes, and we need to get away from that. So we need to emphasize some of those basic fundamental principles of good governance, and that would certainly be what I would try to bring to this role. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Yanni DiNardo.
Thank you. I would say that patience, understanding, and meeting people where they're at. I also think that WebEx has been challenging. I believe that COVID, this pandemic has challenged all of us, and personality traits and different things have come out because of the stress of it. So I think that we've learned a lot. I think that this pandemic has taught us a lot, and I worked for 25 years facilitating with all different kinds of diverse people, and you just have to meet them where they're at. And I think that once we get over this pandemic, and now we have to work with it, so we have to work with what we have, and maybe we could work together to change the culture. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Marsh and then Director Nicholson.
Sorry, my little thing, I could see it, but it wouldn't move. There's 15 different elected officials at this metaphorical table at this moment as we're hybrid. And every one of the 15 have gifts and strengths So as a leader, do you feel you actually see the gifts in each of the people and the strengths? And how will you allow them to be utilized for the betterment of the board?
I'm going to start with Director Yanni DiNardo.
The gifts, I believe that everybody, my theory is everybody that I meet brings a gift to me, that something that I need to learn, something that I'm supposed to be looking for. I think that I've always listening. I've said that in my speech. I think listening is a good thing to have as a trait. And I also think that everybody is unique and their uniqueness can be utilized. And that's exactly what I facilitate in my other world as well. So I hope that I have done that with other board members all along, even while I was an electoral area director chair as well.
That's the first part. I just wonder how you will do that.
How I would continue with the same, that's just what I would continue with, because that's who I am. That is my personality. So I would continue listening, helping, bringing people forward, and also respecting their opinion is as well. So that's about it.
Thank you, Director Sebring.
Thank you. I'd be a little more concrete than that. I did it when I was elected mayor, and it's a little awkward because we're in the middle of a term or near the end of a term, but it would still be my intent between now and the next board meeting to have staff arrange for one-on-ones with each of the directors and the chair to draw out from each of you what your strengths are, what your passions are, and what you're not interested in. And then we get to the matter of what committees do we want and who do we appoint to those committees. I don't want to put square pegs in round holes. I think we need to facilitate a process where, as Director Marsh says, we try to bring out the best in each of us in terms of our strengths and interests. And really the only way to do that is to get face to face and ask some of those probing questions and see where people land. And some people may not be interested in any particular committee appointments. I mean, I know there are municipal directors here who say, I've got my hands full at my other table, and and that's fine. But to at least give the opportunity so that folks have the opportunity to have that input and to show me and the board, where their strengths are, what they're passionate about, and what they'd like to do, and then we'll take it from there. Thank you.
Director Acton.
Thank you. I kind of heard the question a little bit different, but you're right. Everybody does have so many strengths and so many gifts. And some of the gifts that I see, they're presented all the time. And how do we acknowledge them? I think we acknowledge them by listening. So, for example, Director McGonigal, you're always so funny. So that is for sure a gift you have. And Director Stone, your perspective is always kind of right up the middle and comes in right at the end sometimes, and it's like common sense just walked through kind of came along sometimes. And Director Staples has this gift of like really reminding us to be really caring and compassionate. So we put together, we are just this amazing mix. And we need all of those gifts that really stand out for you to present that, and for us to acknowledge it and to hear it and to use those things when we have discussions. And if I'm elected chair, I need those things. I need to connect with you guys on those, on that perspective. And I would want to hear from you. I would want to hear what's going on in your community, what our feedback back to me. So it's creating a connection, and that's all of you. I could just go on and mention all your gifts, but we can do that later afterwards at the end of the night if anyone is curious what I see. But and all of you would agree as well. I think that it's just kind of it's been a very stressful year and a half, and I'm not sure that we all would have signed up for this, but now I think we can really kind of put our best foot forward and let all of those gifts really shine. And I think, we could have a little bit of fun too this year.
I believe Director Nicholson had the next question, and then Director Moore.
Just quickly to all the candidates, the chair becomes the face of the organization, and connecting with the community, I feel it has been so compromised over the last couple of years with COVID and so forth. And I think it was a challenge before then, but I think it's even more challenging now. And I'm wondering if you have some fresh ideas that you could share about how you would be able to help the organization connect better with the community, because they're the people we serve.
Thank you, and I'm going to shift the speaking order and go to Director Sebring first.
Thank you very much. That's an interesting question. One of the things I miss most in these COVID times is something that I did for the first year and a half of my mayoral term, and that was something called Coffee with the Mayor, where and it was just in the geographical confines, obviously, of North Cowichan, where on the first Tuesday of every month, I'd gather folks together, and it wasn't by invitation, it was just put out there to the community going, hey, the mayor's going to be at the Fishbowl in the South End for us. It's actually in the city of Duncan, but don't tell Michelle that. Or, we're going to be at Riot Brewing in Chemainus, or, someplace in Crofton, or someplace at Maple Bay. And folks would come and they would ask the mayor questions and get information about the community, and sometimes rant about, what a terrible job we're doing. I have never felt as energized as I do after those sessions, because it is so good to engage with people in the community, to hear exactly what they're feeling. I would love to do something like that in the context of the CVRD as well. It's outside the organizational confines in some sense, although, I wanted to start it up again in September of this year because it looked like COVID was waning. And one of the ideas I had at that point was there's been a lot of people that have moved into the Cowichan Valley since the start of COVID. I mean, we know that sort of anecdotally, and a lot of them don't understand the boundaries and the governance issues and what's North Cowichan, and my address is Duncan, and why am I in North Cowichan, and what the hell is this regional district thing? So I was going to do the first 4 coffees with the mayor this fall and say, let's make the we advertise in the paper. Let's make the invitation specifically, if you're new to the valley, come and meet the mayor, right? And we could do the same thing in the context of CVRD. The whole thing got kiboshed because of COVID flaring up again. But those are the kinds of initiatives that I personally love in terms of trying to connect with community, and I'd really look forward to doing something like that also at the CVRD level. So, just my thoughts.
Director Yanni DiNardo.
Thank you. I'm not sure that's the problem with COVID. We have to be flexible. Things are changing all the time. So I'm not sure that I would have a complete answer on how we would do it in this changing times right now. I can only tell you what I personally, in my style in the past, is community conversations. Meeting outdoors. I have walking meetings. We have met in parks and all of that. So you just have to switch around, do what you have done before under the confines of COVID. So there's opportunities, and I'm not too sure where we can go with that as the board chair. I think there's lots of communication skills that can be used that we are not currently utilizing. And also when, as a director, there is director's information that can be handed out. There's different ways of communication that we could do. That'll all depend on the flexibility and where this virus goes next.
Director Acton.
So personally, I used to have a directors meeting once a month, and then with COVID, had to get a little creative. I did host some hiking, hike with the director, and I chose some parks to highlight in our area. And, I think we should do more creative things like that, but I don't think that the face of the CVRD necessarily needs to be just the chair. If any one of us three get home tonight and put on our Facebook that we're now the chair of the CVRD, I bet not many people know what that is. So I think just all of us are the face of the CVRD, and being creative, I think it's really important, and I've said it many times here, that we need to think outside of the box of how we're going to get to the community. I think we've done a few things to that extent, and I think we can do better. It will probably be a matter of funding it. But yeah, it's like that example that I sent to the board perhaps a couple months ago, where the pizza box showed up with a little information sheet that they were hiring. So it's just doing little things like that. And I think we can find some fun ways to connect with the community, and hopefully we could discuss that and come up with a few that will help everyone connect with their community better.
Thank you. So we've got about 3 minutes left on the clock, so I think we'll go to Director Morrison, maybe the last question.
I'll try and speak quickly. For all of you, our community and society is changing, and our relationships with our First Nations neighbors will be more important than they likely have ever been. So just very quickly, for those people that are either watching tonight or reviewing the recording of this meeting at a later date, what message, as Director Nicholson had said, you will be the face of this organization. What message do you have for our neighbors, our First Nations neighbors, going into the future for this year ahead?
I'll go to Director Yanni DiNardo first.
Thank you very much. I think it's really important with our neighbors. I can speak to, as a director myself, in Cowichan Bay, where we have probably the highest percentage of Cowichan tribes that are directly connected beside us, and other bands as well. And I think that what we would always do is always have inclusion. The APC, we always had a member of Cowichan tribes that was on our APC for Area D. They did not participate, but they were always included. And when we did our OCP, it was always a seat at the table for our neighbors that we shared our land with. And that is something that I've always worked on that. So I just feel that we need to definitely hold our hands out, but also when we start projects, that we make sure that we include them first, not bringing them in after we've decided what the projects are. So that is something that I have learned, and I have sat back and watched and listened to all of my First Nations friends, and I learned a lot working with them for all those years. And what you need to do is invite and keep communication open, and make sure that they're aware of what is going on, and make sure that they are invited and come on board first, not an afterthought. Thank you.
Director Acton.
I think we live in a really exciting time right now for First Nations. There's exciting opportunity happening, partnerships in economic development, and I think they're finally feeling heard, so we have to continue that. I'm always very humbled when I learn from the First Nations. They have a lot to teach us, and so I'm open, and I'm willing, and I'm learning. And what I have learned is, as long as you come with a good heart, you're accepted. And I'm just so humbled every time.
Director Sebring.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a huge file. Let me, again, just a bit of history, you know, after the 2018 election, before I was sworn in as mayor, the very first call I made the day after the election in terms of what related to my new role as mayor was to set up a lunch with Chip Seymour, to sit and have a chat with him and say, you know what, how can we walk together, how can we work together? And I've developed a very good relationship there. As you know, Councillor Toporowski, Director Toporowski is on my table at North Cowichan. I've learned a lot from her in the last 3 years. And make no mistake, there are challenges ahead for us in governance in this area. How do we apply the UNDRIP principles in the local context? You know, we just got a letter last week at our, I think it was last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, I don't know, at our North Cowichan table. It's open public letter, so I can talk about it. We're developing an OCP, and the lands branch over there said, you know, we'd like to be able to review every rezoning application and every development application that North Cowichan has. And so how do you react to that? You know, we can either say, well, provincial law and the courts say we have no duty to consult, so no. Or we can say, here's the keys to the planning department, we'll give you veto over everything. How do we find a place in the middle that works for everybody? So what we did as a council there was we said, you know what, we want to have a government-to-government meeting with their council to see exactly how this could work in a way that respects First Nations interests, but that also finds a way to still allow us to get our stuff done. So there's challenges, but I look forward to those challenges because I have found in the last 3 years that, and I think Sierra said it, you know, if you approach it with a good heart and you approach it in good faith, you can get a lot done, and you can develop some very good relationships. And it's about more than the Hulkamino language or this or that. It's actually reaching out and making that connection with people. And I'm so humbled and pleased with some of the connections I've been able to make over the past 3 years with some of the elders and some of the individuals of Cowichan tribes. So I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. So that brings us to the end of question period. I am going to share a poll. It's an anonymous poll. It will be open for 4 minutes. If I get 15 votes before the 4 minutes, I can close the poll earlier. Remember to select one candidate and the submit button. I'm still waiting for 2 votes. I do have 14 votes, but still one outstanding.
Ms. Legault, are you still waiting for one?
I'm still waiting for one vote, although I can
So
tell.
I was going to say, if people just look at the bottom, once you submit, it says your poll has been submitted. Just make sure yours shows that.
Could we try a thumbs up if everyone shows that?
Then it will show who didn't vote.
So I can close this poll because I can tell right now that there is not a clear majority, even with a 15th vote cast. There will not be any director that receives 8 on this round of voting. So I'm going to close the poll. And I'm going to share the poll results. So you can see Director Acton has 6, Director Yanni DiNardo has 4, and Director Sebring has 4. So normally in this situation, we would drop the candidate with the lowest number of votes. And given that the Director Yanni DiNardo and Director Sebring are tied, we will run another poll to see which name will drop from the ballot. So if you bear with me while I create another poll. I've opened the poll.
Ms. Legault, there's only 2 names there. Is that supposed to be how it is?
That's correct. The two candidates receiving the lowest number of votes were tied, and so I need to know which candidate will continue in the election for the chair.
I'm fine with this in terms of it eliminates either Lori or I. You okay with it, Lori? Yep. All right.
Well, somehow I feel that it's not right. If there was one vote missing at the last go-around, then that vote could have changed something that can now not be changed. You know what I mean? Because the process has been changed now, and I personally, I don't agree with that. I think, I don't know who missed the first go-around. As far as I'm concerned, we should do the first go-around again and make sure that person votes.
Director Stone?
Just to be fair, this is the same thing that happened last year when we voted this way. We went with 14 votes through to the end. So I don't know if that helps at all, but I appreciate Director Kuhn. But I do think in that case, we did retry voting again once when we only got 14 before we got 14 again. Anyway, so I hear Klaus's point, but I'm comfortable either way.
I would suggest that we run the first vote again. Try to get the 15 votes.
Director Martman?
Yeah, hearing both Director Stone and Director Kuhn, I think one of the things that comes to mind is that if we're having technology issues on collecting all of them, then that's a concern. Can we confirm that the technology is working for all of us? Is there a way to do a test and know who might have the glitch?
I can run a mock poll if everyone agrees that they will vote, and then I can make it not an anonymous result and look at it that way. I can't tell whether it's a technology issue because I collected the first vote anonymously, so I can't tell if it's a technology vote or an abstention. I am hearing consensus that folks would like to do the first vote over again, which I see Director Salmon as well.
Okay, I was just reading, Angie, the written rules for this, right? And for number J there talks about what should happen if the candidates are tied for the lowest number of votes, which is what we're doing. So I think we're on the right track.
Can I ask you guys to indulge me and let me let my dog out before she does something on my rug? And I'll be right back.
Director Morrison?
Thank you, Ms. Legault. I, being exposed to a number of these sort of processes, I think that in the fairness to the candidates and the process, I would suggest that we run a mock vote that would be a simple question like, the sun is not, it's dark outside right now, and ensure that we get 15 respondents. And then if we are able to proceed with 15 respondents in that format, then we go to a retry of the preliminary or of the first round with all three candidates. And
Yeah, I agree with
we
that.
should
Yes.
have an idea of that way. A lot of systems will run a mock vote to ensure that full participation of those involved is happening.
Okay, I'm just looking to see that everyone is back in their chairs. And I am going to... That is exactly the question. I just need a minute to confirm something.
Did you get 15?
If I can make a suggestion, if you can't get a poll to work, if you just put down electoral A, B, A through I, and each of the munis, and we each click on the correct one, you will know where the glitch is.
Thank you. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. We are live, and I want to thank everybody for your patience this evening and send my apologies. We've identified the technical issues, so we are going to go back to square one and conduct round one of the election with all 3 candidates on the ballot. I am just creating the poll and opening it now. And I have 15 votes cast. So I am going to close the poll. And share the results. You'll see Director Acton has 6, Director Yanni DiNardo has 6, and Director Sebring has 3. So according to our process, Director Sebring's name will come off the ballot, and we will run a new poll with Director Acton and Director Yanni DiNardo. And if you'll just bear with me while I create the poll. And I'm opening the poll. I have 15 votes cast. I'm going to close the poll and share the poll results. And I hereby declare Director Yanni DiNardo elected as chair of the Cowichan Valley Regional District. I'll leave it to you. Yeah, we're going to do the election of the vice chair next. So the next order of business is election of the vice chair, which will follow the same process as that for the election of the chair. So I will call for nominations for the office of vice chair. Director Wilson.
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Director Sebring.
Director Sebring, do you accept the nomination?
Sure, why not? Thank you.
And I will call a second time. Director Morrison.
Like to nominate Director Acton.
Director Acton, do you accept the nomination?
Thank you, I accept.
I think I saw another hand out there. Was there another nomination? Director Marsh.
Director Salmon.
Director Salmon, do you accept the nomination?
No, I decline.
Thank you. I'm going to call a second time for further nominations. And a third and final time. Any further nominations? Okay, so I am going to declare nominations closed. The candidates are Director Sebring and Director Acton. Okay, having received those two nominations, each candidate has an opportunity to address the board. And I will get my names in the bin again. And the first candidate to speak is Director Acton.
Well, I won't say a lot, but I would be really honored to support Chair Yanni DiNardo. And, or maybe I should say it as Director McConaughey would, Director Yanni DiNardo. And I think I on a later date, not tonight, it's going to be a long day, but I'd really like to have the conversation with the board about how do we, or if there's an interest in creating the chair role as more of a co-role, so that it's not such a big job for somebody to take on, and explore that. And if that was something the board was interested in, I would be willing to do the legwork involved in that and bringing that forward. So, thank you.
Sorry, Director Sebring.
Thank you. Not a lot to add to what I said earlier. I maintain everything I said earlier about the importance of good governance, and I'd be honored to support Chair Yanni DiNardo in facilitating that. I still think it's important. I think it's more important than ever. You know, I guess I want to say one thing with respect to that governance piece. And Director Acton and I were talking earlier about this before the meeting started. We as a board collectively have the eyes and the ears of the community. And if we as a board collectively are not running on all cylinders, the community notices, and the community doesn't notice the individuals. It says the entire board's a problem. I don't want to get political, but some of us are running for re-election next fall. Some of us might not be. I don't know if I am. But the reality is, when you look at what happened in Nanaimo, and I'm not saying we're dysfunctional like they were in the last term, but that entire council was turfed, when the reality was there were only 4 people there that were the problem. But the community looks at it and says, this whole board's got to go. And I just want to make sure that that doesn't happen here, because we've got some good people around this table. And I would bring my skill set to the vice chair role to try to make sure that doesn't happen. Thank you.
Thank you. And back to the question period of the candidates. I'm going to start the timer. And does anyone have any questions for the candidates? I see Director McGonigal.
And you never know what's going to come out of this mouth, do you? If we have an analogy that the chair is the superhero of the CVRD, the chair needs a good sidekick. What superpowers would you bring to the chair as the sidekick in good governance?
I will go to Director Sebring first.
Interesting. I want to hit my unmute button over here instead of there. The governance skill set that I talked about in my speech for chair. And I'm not saying Director Yanni DiNardo doesn't have that, far from it, but just to add some bench strength in that particular area to say, you know what, we need to, again, to quote Ali Mina, make sure that process is our friend. And I think we can do better at that as a group. So that's my superpower as the sidekick. Thank you.
And Director Acton.
Well, it's too bad I left my cape at home, but I think what a chair will need is just a kind of a sounding board, someone to listen and to trust that it's not going to leave the room. Because just like our area director roles, I kind of see it as it's a bit of a lone ranger kind of role. So I think if you have someone that you can trust and someone that you can talk to just to run ideas through or for support or good days or bad days, I think that is probably the superpower I would bring, and I believe that is kind of something that the chair will need.
And with your indulgence, Ms. Legault, I want to also thank Vice Chair Salmon for his role in getting us through that very difficult year, as well as we move forward to a new vice chair. And a special thanks to Director Stone in the leadership that he had shown in the 2 years as chair through some very, very difficult times. It seemed like one disaster after another, so I just wanted to personally thank both of you for the roles that you played in getting us to where we are tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. We still have 27 minutes on the clock. Any further questions for the candidates? Okay, I'm looking around. I'm not seeing any questions, but just giving you the opportunity to, if anyone wants to flag me while I create the poll question. Okay, last chance for questions. Seeing no questions, I'm going to open the poll. And I have 15 votes cast, so I'm going to close the poll and share the poll results. Director Acton has 10 votes and Director Sebring has 5 votes. And I'm declaring Director Acton elected as Vice Chair for the Cowichan Valley Regional District.
Madam Corporate Officer, just before we proceed, I'm going to log off this device and log back onto this device now that the voting is done. So I'm not leaving the meeting, but I'll be absent for a minute and then back on. Thank you.
So Chair Yanni Donardo, I welcome you to, I thankfully pass the chair to you, but I do suggest that we take a 5-minute recess while we bring staff into the meeting.
Thank you.
We have quorum. Video's live.
Wow, thank you, everyone, and thank you for the votes, and that was super stressful with all of my friends. It's not easy doing that, and I'd like to thank you all for your support, and I will be looking to you all for the support for the rest of this year too, so I'd like to thank you all again. And now I get back into my role as chair. I'm usually doing the electoral area services, but I would like to now, first of all, acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish peoples and look for an adoption of the minutes from, go ahead, Ms. Legault, I'm getting carried away.
The first item is adoption of the agenda, and I believe there were a few directors who had items they wanted to bring
Sorry.
forward.
My apologies. Go ahead, Director Acton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to bring forward the discussion of the Directors Lounge.
Okay, I turn to our corporate officer. Is that on this agenda, or does it go into? closed?
I believe it was just a question about the room, so it could be an item of new business in open meeting, and should there
Okay.
be further discussion that warrants
Okay.
moving to closed, we'll deal with it at the time.
Thank you. So we will add that as new business. And the approval of the agenda, seeing that, with that added on. Go ahead, who? Oh, go ahead, Director Marsh.
Yes, thank you, Madam
Sorry.
Chair,
I've got to
and
look both ways.
congratulations.
Yep.
Yeah, it's hard to play Hollywood Squares, I know. Congratulations, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
And I would like to add, under closed section 8, personal information. It'll be short, I hope.
Okay. That addition to closed and one on regular.
Director Wilson?
Sorry? Oh, okay, go ahead, Director Wilson, you have another addition for closed?
Yes, I apologize, Madam Chair, I was making some notes here. Yeah, I would like to bring forward a discussion on a purchase of land,
Okay,
land acquisition
land acquisition,
within Area C,
okay, thank
and-
you,
under the same provisions as previously mentioned in closed. Thank you.
thank you. So that's 2 additions in closed and 1 on our regular agenda, new business. So with that, an approval of the agenda, now I've got to put my glasses on because I also have to look at the Hollywood Squares over there. Director Nicholson?
Not sure if this is the right time to bring this up, but I am concerned that this meeting is growing quickly. And I don't think I'm very effective if it goes on very late at night. And I am wondering if it's possible to decide now how late we're going to be, and if another option for finishing the meeting if we can't get it done.
Ms. Legault, is there another option? Tomorrow is Remembrance Day. The Thursday is usually our time, but
Should we get to that point where the meeting runs very late, there are opportunities to fix a time to which to adjourn. So we could recess the meeting and reconvene at another time that we announce at that time. So that might be Friday, if that works. But I think that we should make an effort to get through what we can and then deal with it as, it's difficult to predict how long the conversations will take at this stage.
thank you, Ms. Legault. Was that okay, Director Nicholson? We'll play it by ear and see how far we go.
We can play it by ear. I certainly will be concerned if it goes after 10 o'clock.
Okay, thank you. And seeing no other hands up, and now it's an approval of the agenda with, so moved. Second, all in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. Oh, there's Director Stone? Did you have, was that
Yeah,
just
no, I was just opposed.
Oh, okay. Director Stone's opposed. So we turn now to the adoption of the minutes, Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Adoption of the regular board meeting minutes of October 27th, 2021.
Is there a mover? Second? Any questions? All in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. It's a little more awkward with 15 when I had 9 the other day. I'm used to 9. Moving now to, is there any business arising from the minutes, Ms. Legault?
Madam Chair, thank you. No business arising from the minutes and no submissions for public input period.
Great, so we'll go right down to correspondence.
Thank you. Item C1 is correspondence from the Vancouver Island Regional Library regarding appointments to the 2022 Vancouver Island Regional Library Board.
Okay, we're looking to nominate somebody tonight, or somebody who would like to volunteer. Director Wilson.
Madam Chair, I am not actually volunteering. I did the job last year.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'm casting my eyes around, looking at various people on the screen and off the screen and saying, this is a really good job. Do it.
Okay, well, I'm looking at the screen too. Director Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just looking at the bottom of the letter where they're looking for a response with a name by December the 10th, 2021. Is there a time sensitivity for this, or could this be considered by the chair and vice chair and some of their other considerations?
Ms. Legault?
So I'm referring to the contents of the Library Act that says subsequent regular appointments must be made each November at the first meeting of the Municipal Council or Regional District Board.
So I'm looking for, Director Wilson is giving up his seat. I'm looking to the committee. If there is anybody that wishes to take on the library board. Ms. Legault, what if we do not have a member? Oh, we do have a member. Oh,
I will nominate Director Wilson
Oh,
to continue in his
wasn't sure
role
if
as
you-
the representative
Okay,
to the
I
Vancouver
think that-
Island. I'm
yes.
not done.
oh, sorry.
That's okay. To the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board.
Yeah, I was just about to say, okay, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do
Thank-
it. Put me down.
Thank you so much.
And I'm sure that Director Smith, as my alternate, would be more than happy to step in again this year.
And if I may, I think you must stay on for 7 years to get the gift from the Vancouver Island Regional
That's what it
Library
is.
Board.
Yeah, for your
And,
pension.
Please continue on because it is a very worthy gift.
Thank you so
And
much.
then they give you the boot.
Right, so we're turning now to Ms. Legault, the next.
Madam Chair, if we could just have a vote on that. The Library
Oh.
Board requires a resolution.
Okay, thank you. So we will vote on Director Wilson serving us for another year on the library board. All in favor?
Hang on, point of order, Madam
Whoops,
Chair.
sorry.
And added to that motion, Director Smith as the alternate.
Oh, thank you so much. Keep me on task. And Director Smith is the alternate. Now I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. Thank you so much. Moving on now. Ms. Legault?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have the CR1 is the report and recommendations of the Cowichan Lake Recreation Commission meeting of October 28th, 2021.
And who will take that? Director Morrison?
As soon as I can bring it back up on my screen,
Yeah, I
I'd
did
be
the same thing with my
pleased
screen.
to do that. I just clicked on the wrong item. There are some items that do require board resolution, so I will bring that up.
You can move 1 and 3, it's one resolution. We have it in our agendas, and it's 1 through 4.
Yeah, I'm having the swirling circle of death on my screen, so yes, I would move that items 1 through, the first item that has 4 components be moved.
Is there a seconder? It's been seconded. Is there any question on that? Go ahead, Director McGonigal.
Thank you. I understand the financial implications and the need for direction from this board. Number 1 seems to be an operational portion within the Cowichan Lake Recreation, and I'm wondering why that is here for consideration, being an operational process. Would it be because it came from the commission?
Mr. Elzinga, could you help us with that, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. Through our delegation bylaw in discussion with our corporate services personnel, it was determined that if there's going to be a future agreement signed, it should be brought to the board for consideration. So anything that is going to be into a future agreement, and that's why some of the recommendations considered by the commission are here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the
Any other
clarification.
questions? Go ahead, Director Sebring.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm a little bit confused is the wrong word, concerned, I guess, maybe. You know, when I look at our agenda and on the electronic version, there's a link to the Cowichan Lake Recreation Commission meeting. But when I click on that agenda, there's no reports. It's all verbal reports. And I frankly don't fully understand the rationale behind some of the recommendations that are before us, because those came as verbal reports to the commission. And so I mean, fine if this is what staff is recommending and what the commission's recommending. But just as a process piece, it would be nice to have some of that background information.
Mr. Elzinga.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through to Director Sebring, the report that was considered by the Couch and Lake Recreation Commission was in camera, in closed session, and we rose with report with a number of items that came to the open session of the board.
So the actual background report is closed.
Correct.
Well,
Follow up, Director Sebring?
It would still have been nice to see the rationale for some of this, because I mean, I'll support it, but I'm really not clear what I'm voting on or why. That's all.
Okay, thank you. I turn now to CR2, Ms. Legault.
Call the question,
Oh.
Madam Chair.
I'm really, all in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion is carried. Thank you.
On to item CR2, report and recommendations of the Electoral Area Services Committee meeting of November 3rd.
And as I could go ahead, because could I not go ahead? I mean, I would just like to move the recommendation number 1, and 2. If I get a seconder? Is there any question on that? And I call the question, all in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion is carried. Electoral area directors only vote on 2, 3, sorry, paper copy. Yes?
Did you do number 3? I was sure you said 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I meant, oh, sorry, I did 1, 2, 4, and 3. 3 and 4.
No, but 4 isn't the point. It's a continuation of the sentence on the previous line.
So,
Section 6, range 4.
okay, so it's a little confusing. I was moving 1 and then the points with 1. Do I need to redo that? Ms. Legault?
I think we can have a quick revote there, just to make
Okay.
sure everything's proper.
So if everybody's looking at, I'm just going off my paper copy currently, and it's a recommendation, and it's 1, 2, 4, and 3. So I move that. Second? Any more questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any?
Point of order.
Yeah, go ahead, Director Martman.
That does not line up with what I have in the report to
I don't
on
know.
the
Okay, I think what it is just 1, 2, and 3.
That's it.
yes.
It's a typo. So it's 1, 2, and 3. Okay, it has been, this is the second time it's been, we voted on it. Do we need to redo that? Ms. Legault?
I think we're fine.
Okay, thank you. The electoral area directors only vote on 2, 3, I'm gonna get this one wrong this time. 2 and 3, 4, and 5,
And 6.
and 6. Is there a mover? Second? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. Thank you so much. We move to CR3. Ms. Legault.
Thank you. This is the report and recommendations of the Community Services Committee meeting of this afternoon.
Director Nicholson?
Community Services Committee reports and recommends as follows: that an application to the Provincial Infrastructure Planning Grant Program to assist with the funding of the Couch and Community Center roof assessment in 2022 be approved. And 2, that the amendment to the license of occupation agreement for the Island Health Vaccine Clinic at the Community Center as outlined in the staff report of November 10th be approved.
Okay, that's been moved. Is there a seconder? Moved and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. Thank you so much. Moving now to staff reports.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item SR1 is a staff report from Economic Development Cowichan regarding the CVRD and Malahat First Nation Joint Canadian Economic Development Initiative Program application. We have a slightly revised recommendation to propose from what is in the staff report, as we've received word that the application has been shortlisted. So in addition to the resolution of support, we'd be looking for a resolution to support appointment of a director to represent the CVRD in the application interview process and going forward with the program. So the recommendation that we're proposing as staff is that the application to the Community Economic Development Initiative, CEDI, Phase 3 program to support intergovernmental collaboration between the CVRD and Malahat Nation be endorsed, and 2, that Director Salmon be appointed to represent the CVRD in the application process and related matters.
Go ahead, Director Sebring.
I was just moving it. I'm glad Director Salmon's name was plugged into that. I was going to suggest it anyway.
So it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this? Go ahead, Director Marsh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to express my gratitude for Mr. Reardon and his department, if he has one, for a really great application, and I'm sure Director Salmon had something to do with it. The relationship that has been built with the Malahat Nation is really something to be honored by. Some good people have connected with some good people. I would just suggest that under 34 of our part of the application, we add education as one of our economic things, given we have VIU and we have a number of private schools as well as public schools, and we have early childhood education centers. I think there is quite a bit of employment done there. I see Mr. Reardon took that, but really great application, really great work, and I'm excited because I know you're going to get it.
Okay, so I wasn't quite clear on adding were you adding something to this resolution? Or you're just saying?
Well, I'm just suggesting Mr. Reardon might want to add under 34, which lists all of the different types of employment, education, because there is a lot of different education here, and I'm sure it's easy to miss that. That's all.
Thank you, Director Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to pose a question to Mr. Reardon, if possible. Reading the application, and it was a few days ago that I read this agenda, it was an indication of one that we're taking care of with the recommendation for Director Salmon, but there was also a note of, and it didn't look like administrative support, but the commitment to support of more senior individuals, which I think might be Mr. O'Riordan in this. Do we have an idea as to the ask that's being put to us and our capacity to be able to fulfill that aspect that's being posed?
Mr. O'Riordan.
Through the chair, I'd have to pull up the application, but I believe that it would be a few hours every month would be the commitment from senior staff, which would be myself and somebody else on the senior management team, as well as the elected official every month for up to 2 years.
Okay, that has been moved and seconded. I see another hand. Go ahead, Director Smith.
Thank you. I believe in the report it states that it's 2 years seniors staff time, elected official, etc. And, you know, currently we have staff that have indicated that they're working beyond their capacity already. And we also have been advised that we aren't applying for grants at this time due to lack of staff. And I'm just wondering how it is we move forward with something that's going to take staff time, commitment on our part without actually knowing, and how the funding will, with the funding, the grant application. So it's a bit of a, I mean, it sounds wonderful. We see that Langford is planning on putting in a film studio, which is just over the Malahat from the Malahat. And so I'm just wondering if we should have a really good look at the staff time and the elected officials' time involved in something like this before we make a commitment to moving forward on this.
Are you making a is this time sensitive as well? I'm not sure. Okay, I turn to Director Marsh, and I'm not sure if you wanted to refer it back, Director Smith, but I'm just waiting to hear.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Well, I would like, excuse me,
sorry,
just a minute.
sorry.
I want to have a follow-up.
Okay, go ahead.
I would like to know the staff time that's actually going to be involved. If it's 2 hours every month, that might be different. But we already know that Mr. O'Riordan is already working at full capacity, and adding more to the workload brings, you know, we have other things that are coming along that we're going to be adding to his workload, I'm sure, as we go through the budget. So I have concerns about staff time and staff capacity.
Mr.
And
O'Riordan,
I think we should have a better understanding of that before we move forward.
Mr. O'Riordan, I think you've already said it was a few hours a month. Is that for director and yourself? Does that clarify that?
Through the chair, I'm just looking at the application here. It says 3 hours each month for elected official groups, and staff working group champions should be prepared to give 5 hours each month. And this has been discussed with our CAO and senior management, and I think behind this is, if this does go ahead, it will have significant implications for the whole region. And not looking at this would have its own implications down the line in many ways. That it's worth spending the time to both build the relationships which will be built regardless of the outcome of this process, and then to invest the time to understand what the implications would be throughout the region on many different fronts.
Okay, is there any follow-up, Director Smith? I'm going to go to Director Marsh. Director Marsh and then Director Sebring. Go ahead, Director Marsh.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the concern for not overwhelming staff, but they brought this forward, and we've just heard from Mr. O'Riordan that they have the CAO's approval. And in the analysis, they mention, mostly I think it was in Ladysmith, that yearly over the last recent years, the location-based film activity in our region is estimated to be several $1 million per year. So this is a huge economic development opportunity. An actual film studio will be a lot more than several $1 million a year. Once they've done their feasibility study, if it's feasible, this is a fantastic location to create films. And I would just posit that California is going to become more and more difficult to do filming outside because of the heat, and same with other traditional places. So I think we should support this for our community economically, but I also just love that it is one of the grants we're encouraged to do and partner with First Nations and help them in their economic development. So it feels to me like a win-win-win. Thank you.
Thank you. I turn to Director Sebring.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of points. Director Marsh said some of the things that I was thinking as well, and we heard from Mr. O'Riordan. You know, this is about more than a film studio. This is about building relationships. This board has indicated quite clearly that building those relationships with First Nations is a priority. This is one way to do it. 5 hours of staff time per month is not insignificant, but it becomes a matter of priorities, and I think this should be a priority. I would just add to that, I can't believe we're having this discussion. We beat this up this afternoon in the committee. Nothing came up there, and now all of a sudden we're relitigating the whole thing in the board. I honestly thought this motion was going to be a slam dunk. These concerns, in my humble opinion, should have been brought up earlier today at committee, but it is what it is. Thank you.
I don't recall the committee earlier today on this one, but I will turn to, is there anyone else? Oh, turn to Director Staples. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I really support this. I just would like to thank Mr. O'Riordan for bringing this forward. I think it's a really important initiative for the region and also for relationships. And yeah, I fully support this, and I look forward to seeing how this progresses.
Great, thank you so much. So I'm going to go ahead, Director McGonigal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I certainly support the application coming from staff and the CAO. Considering all the work that we did within our strategic plan, which this ticks 2 major blocks, reaching out, working collaboratively, and economic development, which this most certainly would have a regional effect economically should it move forward. A 5-hour a month investment on staff time, I don't think will impact as much as we may consider, but the process to get to this studio, should it happen, would have overriding effects throughout the region, so I'm in full support.
Okay, I am seeing no other hands up. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion is carried. Thank you so much. I see Chair Stone yawning and relaxing there. Yeah, ex-Chair Stone. Past. Yeah, past Chair Stone. Turning now to public hearings, Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Public hearing minutes regarding official community plan amendment bylaws 4393 and 4394 and zoning amendment bylaw number 4395 to be received.
Okay, moved. Second. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. Ms. Legault.
On to bylaws for electoral area directors, BEA 1, CVRD bylaw number 4393, electoral areas official community plan amendment bylaw 2021 for third reading.
Moved. Second. Oh, you know what I did? I went moved and then looked on the screen in second, but you're the same person. I've got to stick to the screen. This is so confusing. So it's been moved by Director Acton. Do I get a seconder that I can see? And seconded by Director Wilson. All in question?
Just a point of process. I don't meddle in electoral area director business. Is this series of motions the adoption of what we know as the harmonized official community plan, or is this something different? This is the adoption of that. Because my point of process is simply, but that's my point. Director Acton's mic is on, but she says we already adopted it. Who's we? Electoral Area Services or the board? Because I don't recall it going to the board, but I saw a press release go out. Did I miss that?
Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe it was adopted on October 13th. That was bylaw 4270. So this is an amendment to that bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Then that blew by me. That's fine. Thank you very much.
I believe it was moved and seconded. Could you remind me? Yes. Okay. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. Ms. Legault.
And that same bylaw 4393, electoral areas official community plan amendment bylaw for adoption.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. Ms. Legault.
On to item BEA 2, CVRD bylaw 4395, electoral area G, Saltaire Gulf Islands zoning amendment bylaw 2021 for third reading.
Moved by Director Smith, seconded by Director Salmon. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. Moving on to the next one. Thank you.
CVRD bylaw 4395, electoral area G, Saltaire Gulf Islands zoning amendment bylaw 2021 for adoption.
Moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Smith. All in favor? The other way. Any opposed? Motion's carried. Ms. Legault.
And item BEA 3, CVRD bylaw 4401, electoral area E, Cowichan Station, Satlam Glenora zoning amendment bylaw 4781 Bench Road, PID 030184789-2021 for first and second readings.
Moved by Director Nicholson, seconded by Director Smith. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. Ms. Legault.
On to the item of new business, Director Acton's item regarding the Director's Lounge.
Go ahead, Director Acton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a motion. It's becoming a long night. Sorry about this. Came up quickly.
You have a resolution that you've just trying to find on your computer?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe Ms. Legault already has it? Was it forwarded?
Yeah, sorry. For some reason, it's not in order. The original. My resolution was that staff reinstate the Director's Lounge with required amenities for the board's exclusive use, and if I have a seconder, I'd like to speak to it.
It's been moved and seconded. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, as an electoral area director, and as things open up more for us, I see the use of that lounge being really important for when we have meetings, but also for when we are meeting with staff or meeting with each other. We have that space to use to conduct our business and to have that privacy, either if it's just to have lunch or to make a private phone call. So I think it's really important that we keep that lounge space access for us.
Thank you. I see Director Wilson. Go ahead, please. And I see Ms. Mohan has come on the screen too.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm of exactly the same opinion. We need a place where we can go. For instance, I did send an email earlier on to the board concerning this, and the other thing that comes into it is, of course, access. I came in to Duncan early. I had some other things to take care of, and then I had a couple of hours to spare. Well, the only place I could go was in here, and I had to leave stuff behind. That door was unlocked. There was nowhere secure. And I have to question some of the legality of actually shutting us out of a place that has been for years part of the director's access. I'm not happy with all these restrictions and denials that are going on right now, and this is part of it. So I am in favour of reinstating that to exactly what it was before. Thank you.
I go to Ms. Mohan, would you like to share something now, or I have a speakers list that's happening?
I can provide a little bit of information through the chair.
Go ahead.
So I'm just going to speak to the Director's Lounge from one perspective. I'm not aware of all the reasons that may be behind the decision or communicated to the board, but the one that I am familiar with in the course of doing my job is the fact that that was originally designed as our first aid room for staff. And so given that the size of our staff in the building is of a certain level, and requirements around first aid are constantly evolving and changing, we've had to make some renovations to that room, including redoing the flooring. And one of the other renovations is that we're required to have like a first aid bed, so something other than a couch, for the purposes of delivering first aid to anybody, any staff member in the building, based on the numbers of staff that we have. And so that bed is on order, I believe, and will be arriving soon, and we'll have to live in that room. And it looks sort of like a hospital bed, or sort of a lounge chair / hospital bed. So so there were some legitimate first aid reasons why we had to reclaim that room. And there were also concerns around, because the room is pass accessed, and conceivably someone could inadvertently walk into the room while first aid was being delivered, or while someone was convalescing there during the workday, it became an obsolete room for staff, because there was no privacy for staff to be in there during an incident, or should they need to convalesce in the room. So that was some of the first aid related rationale behind the change in designation in that particular room. But I can't really speak to any more than that on this issue.
Thank you. I turn to Directors Marsh and Sebring, then Morrison. Go ahead, Director Marsh.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I was merely going to ask for Ms. Mohan or Mr. Alzinga to explain the reasoning, but maybe I'll ask one question, because I I do understand that some directors travel from quite a ways and sometimes have time in between meetings. So maybe you don't know this yet, Ms. Mohan, but if a small committee meeting room was vacant, would they be able to spend some time there, or is all this going to be worked out in time?
Ms. Mohan?
Unfortunately, I'm not able to comment, so I don't actually know what's possible at this point because I don't think that it's been looked at, or I'm not aware of any conversations to that effect. So
Yeah, so I would suggest we just leave this until we have the full information.
Okay, we'll turn to Director Sebring. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess through you to Ms. Mohan or perhaps Mr. Elzinga. Some of us would beg to differ with the characterization that this has always been the first aid room. As long as I've been here, it's always been the Director's Lounge. That's number one. Number two, the process by which this decision was made is, I think, a problem for some board members. There was an expectation, legitimate or not, that was a Director's Lounge, and to suddenly be told, sorry, you're done, is a bit problematic. Was any consideration given to creating some other space, either for a Director's Lounge or for a first aid room? And if not, can that perhaps become part of the discussion?
Ms. Mohan?
so through the chair to Director Sebring, I think that what I understood was when the building was designed, that room was included in the design as a first aid room for various design reasons, I believe. But I agree with you that I don't know that it's ever not been a director's lounge. That's consistent with my understanding as well. And that was dual purpose, basically, for the entirety of the life of the building. But I haven't been here since the building was built. So there's maybe Mr. Elzinga can provide further perspective on that. I do believe there was conversation about alternatives to relocate the first aid, and those were not found to be acceptable. But I don't know that there's been any discussion around an alternate location for the director's lounge.
Go ahead, Mr. Elzinga, and then I turn to Director Morrison. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just going to add that it is a current WorkSafe BC requirement for a building like this to have a first aid room. I can't speak to the communication around the decision that was made, but I can speak to the fact that as a senior management team and our CAO has been extremely concerned with COVID safety protocols and addressing the safety of staff over the past year and a half. As the board is aware, we're just starting to talk about reopening. We're not in a normal situation. That decision was made during a COVID pandemic.
Thank you. I turn to Director Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The conversation is very troubling. I don't feel comfortable to speak further on this without resolving into closed session. I would yield if the chair was to call a vote on the resolution on the floor, but I feel that I've got important information to bring to bear on this if we're going to have further discussion, and I'm not comfortable in having that discussion in closed session in both personnel. Thank you.
So Ms. Legault, would we put this into our closed session? It's appropriate to put this into closed?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we will move.
Just a point of order then, Madam Chair. The motion that's on the floor, would that also move into closed, and we'd report out on the results of that vote as part of a Horizon report?
Thank you, Ms. Director Sebring.
I'm just asking the question of our corporate officer.
So I recorded that it was moved. I'm not sure if it was seconded. Was there a
Yes,
second?
it was.
It was seconded? Thank you.
Yes. Director Wilson in front of you seconded it.
So there could be a motion to refer this resolution for discussion in closed session?
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I call the question. Do you need to speak to that, Director Wilson? Go ahead.
Only very briefly, Madam Chair. Yeah, the reason I'm going to ask for this to be moved or support this is because if there is information that Director Morrison wants to give that he's not happy with in doing it and open, then yeah, fully support. any information that comes out in closed, that he would be comfortable bringing forward.
Thank you. So I'm gonna make the motion to refer to closed. Seeing no other hands up, all in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. Moving on now, Ms. Legault, was there just one new business in this question period?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are no requests to participate in question period, so the next order of business would be to make a motion to close the meeting to the public in accordance with Community Charter Section 91, sub A, C, E, and I.
Thank you. Mover? Second? All in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. Take 10 minutes, please. Sorry? Oh, do we log out of here? Yes, I
We
believe we
log
do.
out. We have a separate
Log
meeting
out,
invitation.
and we have a separate invitation.